This Trump-Epstein email scandal has gotten crazier and crazier. I mean, the floodgates blew open last night. Because yesterday morning, Democrats on the House Oversight Committee, they released 3 emails that they obtained from Jeffrey Epstein's estate. And those included bits where Epstein called Trump the dog that hasn't barked, said a victim since reported to be Virginia Giuffre spent hours at my house with him, and said about Trump, of course he knew about the girls as he asked Elaine to stop. But also in response, you had the committee's Republicans claiming, hey, those emails were selectively chosen, redacted, and taken out of context. And well, now they've dumped the entire 23,000 document trove from the estate, but rather than exonerating Trump, they just make him look much, much worse. Right, so let's go through these revelations one by one, though I will say first, Epstein, really awful at grammar. But it's like every casual boomer email I've ever seen. It typos galore, he doesn't capitalize the right letter, punctuation's all over the place. But as far as stuff that actually matters, probably the biggest bombshell to come out from this latest drop is an Epstein email written in February of 2019. Right, because apparently he's referring to the sexual abuse of underage girls, and he wrote, Trump knew of it and came to my house many times during that period. He never got a massage. Also in 2015, Epstein emailed a then New York Times reporter, would you like photos of Donald and girls in bikinis in my kitchen? Though there, despite replying yes, the reporter says that he never actually got those photos. But he did get an anecdote with Epstein suggesting people should, quote, ask my houseman about Donald almost walking through the door, leaving his nose print on the glass as young women were swimming in the pool, and he was so focused he walked straight into the door. Many of the emails were also just packed full of vicious insults that Epstein had for Trump, with him, for example, telling the same reporter, he feels alone and is nuts. I told everyone from day one, evil beyond belief, mad, and most thought I was speaking metaphorically. It's obvious he could crack. Stormy Daniels, lies after lies after lies. Then in a 2018 exchange with the author Michael Wolff, Epstein referred to dopey Donald and demented Donald, saying that his finances were all a sham. And the year before, when someone called Trump so gross, Epstein replied, worse in real life and up close. And in a conversation with Larry Summers, Epstein once called Trump borderline insane. When Summers asked whether Trump would crack into insanity, Epstein said his strength is remarkable. He is pounded 24/7. I hope someone close to him gets indicted, but not sure. Otherwise, the pressure of the unknown will force him to do crazy things. And Epstein saying at another point, your world does not understand how dumb he really is. He will blame everyone around him for bad results. Also in late 2018, though it's unclear what the context is, someone emailed Epstein, it will all blow over. They're really just trying to take down Trump and doing whatever they can to do that. To which the famed billionaire pedophile replied, it's wild because I am the one able to take him down. And well, that is pretty much it for the insult. There's also a lot of really interesting stuff to grab onto here. Or with, for example, the modeling agency co-founder Faith Cates asking Epstein in 2017 where he was spending Thanksgiving, and then later asking who else is down there, to which Epstein replied, David Feisel, Henson, Trump. And the year before, during an exchange with a members-only club founder, Jenny Enterprise, Epstein said that he spent Thanksgiving in Palm with the Trump crowd. Or with that one not necessarily meaning Donald Trump himself, though the first email certainly seems like it. And that would be really standout because that appears to contradict Trump's claim that he broke off contact with Epstein after 2004. Though also, as you may have guessed from some of the other emails, they don't appear to have, been friendly, even if that was true. And in fact, the emails show that Epstein was frequently working with his associates to dig up dirt on Trump, though the reasons weren't clear. Or with him in 2012 suggesting that his lawyer investigate Trump's finances, including the mortgage on Mar-a-Lago and a $30 million loan that Epstein said Trump had received. Also in 2019, one of Epstein's advisors apparently went through Trump's federal financial disclosure form, which he called 100 pages of nonsense, and emailed Epstein 9 interesting findings. And those including information about the president's foundation, businesses, and assets. Also, another email that's gotten some attention is one between Epstein and a top European official that was written in June of 2018, notably 1 month before Trump met Vladimir Putin in Helsinki. And Epstein suggested that the official tell Putin that Russia's foreign minister Sergei Lavrov could get insight on Trump by talking to him, and adding that Vitaly Churkin, Russia's then ambassador to the United Nations, used to, but he died. With Epstein then elaborating on the insight he could provide, saying, it is not complex. He must be seen to get something. It's that simple. Also in another exchange with former White House counsel Catherine Rumler in 2018, they discussed Michael Cohen, who admitted to conspiring with Trump to pay Stormy Daniels hush money. Or with Epstein saying, you see, I know how dirty Donald is. My guess is that non-lawyers New York biz people have no idea what it means to have your fixer flip. And y'all, there is so much more. We've got emails between Epstein and former Prince Andrew, Woody Allen's wife, Steve Bannon, Peter Thiel, tons of people. There's really just so much more we could go through. But of course, the main spotlight right now is on the revelations about Epstein and Trump, though there are varying responses here. Right, of course, you have Democrats saying a lot of this is concerning, appears to shed a light on a lot, really playing them up. But they're also accusing the GOP of dumping so many documents at once to distract from the few specific things that look really bad. Or the idea being that instead of letting the Democrats drip feed these emails to the press, Republicans can kind of just rip off the Band-Aid. But also the Republicans, they counter that all the other documents are the real point and the focus on Trump is the real distraction. You even had Trump himself posting on Truth Social, the Democrats are trying to bring up the Jeffrey Epstein hoax again because they'll do anything at all to deflect on how badly they've done on the shutdown and so many other subjects. Only a very bad or stupid Republican would fall into that trap. The Democrats cost our country $1.5 trillion worth their recent antics of viciously closing our country, while at the same time putting many at risk, and they should pay a fair price. There should be no deflections to Epstein or anything else, and any Republicans involved should be focused only on opening up our country and fixing the massive damage caused by the Democrats. But then with that, you have people asking, well, okay, if this is just a nonsense distraction, then it doesn't explain why he's apparently been scrambling to prevent any more of the Epstein files from getting out. Right? I mean, his top White House officials had meetings with Representatives Lauren Boebert and Nancy Mace yesterday, reportedly trying to persuade them to take their names off the discharge petition. But the petition, it passed yesterday, setting in motion the process that'll end with a floor vote in the House on whether to make Trump release the Epstein files. So with all this, I do want to note that both Boebert and Mace defended Trump when asked about the meetings.
The president has not forced me to do anything. The president has not put pressure on me. I was not asked by the president to remove my name. Every conversation that I had was welcomed and very civil. And, it's okay for people to have discussions about things that are going on with our nation.
I am deeply frustrated with the press. All this focus on Trump, who's been exonerated by the Epstein victims. And we're not focused on the Epstein victims or their stories. It is disingenuous. And I don't like playing politics with rape. I don't like playing politics with child rape. I don't like playing politics with sex trafficking, but that's what Democrats are doing.
Now, as far as Mike Johnson, he says he's going to put the resolution to release the Epstein files up for a vote on the House floor next week. And that, notably after Republican Representative Tim Burchett actually tried to fast track the vote using a procedure called unanimous consent. Something that many have called a sneaky move because it would have not required lawmakers to actually go on the record in a roll call vote. But that, it failed, and so now Republicans are headed straight for this iceberg of voting yes or no on releasing the Epstein files, or getting where they stand documented in public. Now, with all this, you did have Thomas Massie telling Politico, I'm certain the House vote will succeed. Some Republican members who are not signers on the petition have told me they will vote for the measure when the vote is called, and adding, I suspect there will be many more. And with that, you have sources telling Politico that senior Republicans privately believe that dozens of Republicans will vote for it, possibly 100 or more. In fact, we're already seeing a handful of Republican lawmakers who didn't sign the petition saying that they will vote for the actual measure. But for now, we're gonna have to wait to see what happens with that vote. Also, wait to see what else pops from these emails. And in the meantime, I would really love to know your thoughts, opinions, and reactions to everything here, especially regarding all the Epstein emails. But then next up, in a different kind of news, this Cynthia Erivo, Ariana Grande situation's kind of crazy. Because Cynthia Erivo just had to save Ariana Grande from a crazy clout chaser who ran up to her and grabbed her on the red carpet. Because you had the two of them, along with the rest of their castmates at the Wicked Part 2 premiere in Singapore. The video, it shows some guy running up on the red carpet, charging Ariana, putting his hands around her until a group of bodyguards, led by Cynthia, intervened. With this angle really showing that Cynthia was not fucking around. With her then becoming a top trending topic this morning as people were praising how quick she was to defend Ariana, and others just really talking about how scary the situation was. People noting this is dangerous behavior and that celebrities have real reason to fear alarming fan behavior. And then in addition to that, you have people noting, in addition to the just regular crazy shit that Ariana has to deal with, her concert's even been targeted by a terrorist attack in the past. So you have people saying that her safety probably feels all that more terrifying. And then as far as the person who did this, reports quickly identified him as this social media troll who basically does this shit all the time. His name goes by Fuck You, I'm Not Gonna Say It. And in the past, he's rushed the stage at concerts like the Chainsmokers, The Weeknd, Katy Perry. He's also done it at major sporting events. And actually, he even posted on Instagram about what he did to Ariana, saying that he finally met her, with him then sharing footage of security escorting him out and also writing that he was free after being arrested. But as far as other details, there's really not much else we know right now. So yeah, in general, the response to this has been a resounding fuck you. People asking, how could you do this to someone who's suffering from PTSD, saying he belongs in jail, people calling it assault, people saying that Instagram should ban him so he no longer has a platform to do these kinds of things. But also what happened here, it kind of highlights that, this isn't even the first time that Ariana Grande has had to deal with safety threats from fans since the press tour for the new Wicked movie started. Earlier this month, she told fans she unfortunately had to miss a premiere in Brazil because of flight issues. And you had fans, disappointed, which you'd expect, but also apparently they were so upset that she had to tell them to stop wishing danger on her and her team, writing, we did everything we could, and I promise you, no one is more upset than I am. I promise. And adding, no matter how upset or disappointed you are, please do not wish danger on us or assume that we didn't try. For now, that's where we are. We'll have to see if anything changes, but in the meantime, do a quick check of your friend group and see if you have a real one like Cynthia Erivo. Or like if something's gonna go down, they say, not today. Erivo might actually be our BAMF of the day. And then we've got more news for you in just a minute, but first let me say, I'm no gatekeeper. I use the best razor ever made, and honestly, I think you need this in your life. And yeah, I'm talking about Henson shaving, the only razor that I've used since before they even sponsored the show. Right? It's not hype, it's just that good. It feels like the rest of the shaving industry is a scam. Right? Plastic plastic handles, overpriced refill packs, and blades that dull faster than my attention span on a Monday morning. But Henson's the total opposite. No gimmicks, no vibrating nonsense, just aerospace-grade precision made by the same engineers who build satellite parts. It feels solid, balanced, and gives you that perfect close shave without razor burn or irritation. Once you use it, you'll realize how bad every other razor is, and your skin will thank you. Also, the blades, they cost pennies. I mean, I spend less in a year than I used to in a month with the big brands. It's one razor that'll outlast every other thing in your bathroom drawer. I mean, seriously, why wouldn't you want the best shave of your life forever? So hey, make the move now and scan the QR code or go to hensonshaving.com/DeFranco and use code DeFranco and they'll throw in 100 blades free with your razor. It's basically like 2 years of shaving on me. Right, and then jumping back into the news, we should talk about how the Make America Healthy Again movement now has a new hero that might be even more controversial than RFK Jr., Elizabeth Holmes. And if you're like, why does that name sound familiar? She's the woman who spearheaded Theranos, a medical company that turned into one of the biggest frauds ever. She told investors in the world that they were developing a device that could test for all kinds of ailments with just a single drop of blood. And it even affected actual customers because several Walgreens had the devices to provide what they thought were affordable tests, except an investigation showed that the results were flawed at best and flat out wrong at worst. And all of it, I mean, the details are wild. This is surface level. The details, again, are crazy. It led to Holmes getting just over 11 years in federal prison back in 2022. But for MAHA writer Jessica Reed Krause, Holmes is a bit of an inspiration. Just a few weeks ago, she wrote a post to her 500,000 Substack followers, Elizabeth Holmes redemption arc loading. And in it, she wrote, "My crew joked that if Holmes emerged today, she would be counted among the innovators MAHA endorses." And Holmes, it turns out, was pretty happy for this positive spin, and her X account linked to the article and called it a beautifully written article. The crowd's then quick to follow up that there was more to come, and she called the case against Holmes twisted and that, quote, "Based on the research I've done, it's definitely deserving of fresh eyes and a whole new series of investigation, which I'm committed to. Stay tuned." Krause is by no means the only one in the MAHA space who's sympathetic to Holmes. I mean, she asked her readers if they thought Holmes was treated fairly, and 81% answered no. You know, other influential people in the MAHA space, they've also taken notice of Holmes, who I will say is surprisingly active on X for someone behind bars. But I mean, you had the co-founder and co-editor of the conservative women's magazine, Evie, writing that she was interested in learning more about Holmes's case. You know, this is among others. You have anti-abortion activist Lila Rose pushing a Free Liz campaign. You have the recent MAHA ally Brian Johnson jokingly giving Holmes diet advice for prisoners. And in general, it kind of seems like MAHA is driving this narrative that Holmes was willing to take on the medical space and she got punished for it. Because her machine, if it ever worked, it could help people tackle their own healthcare at home, which is, it's like a wet dream for MAHA. So, taken all together, she's kind of this anti-hero figure that needs to be saved. But also for Holmes, there is a practical reason to embrace this, not just because, it's nice when people are nice to you, but also maybe getting the fuck out of prison. Right? Because if she becomes popular enough with MAHA, there's a chance that she gets on RFK Jr.'s radar. And with that, wouldn't you know it, she's also tweeted positively about him recently. And from there, it could reach President Trump, who's been more than willing to just kind of throw out pardons, especially when his followers feel like they were anti-establishment and prosecuted by the Biden administration. So it's something to keep eyes on because it really appears to be one of her only chances to get out. Earlier this year, an appeals court rejected a request for rehearing a failed appeal on her conviction. So, something we're going to keep eyes on, and if it comes through, then you know why. But then next up, today, the longest government shutdown in history is now over after 43 days, and we need to talk about what was in the bill and what happens next. Because the House passed the bill with 6 Democrats breaking ranks to vote in favor, 4 Republicans doing the same to vote against, and then Donald Trump signed the bill into law last night, saying we're sending a clear message that we will never give in to extortion because that's what it was. The Democrats tried to extort our country. Right? And you also had Republican leadership trying to pin blame on the other side, saying there is absolutely no question now that Democrats are responsible for millions of American families going hungry, millions of travelers left stranded in airports, and our troops left wondering if they would receive their next paycheck. Of course, all of that as you've had Democrats and others characterizing what was happening as the president and the Republicans holding the American people hostage. But essentially using American people and the most vulnerable in the country as human shields, and at times even fighting to make sure that they didn't get resources while the government was shut down. And while, you can decide who you think's at fault, there is no doubt that there was a massive impact had. Because just to recap, in this shutdown, you had 700,000 federal workers furloughed. Also, hundreds of thousands of others remained on the job without pay, including active duty military, law enforcement, and airport security, as well as air traffic controllers. And with that last one there, last week, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy ordered a 10% cut in flights at 40 major U.S. airports. With that then being followed by thousands of canceled and delayed flights across the country, and Trump then threatening to dock the pay of air traffic controllers. So they were not the only ones being threatened, with Trump threatening that furloughed workers might not get back pay. And his administration was doing a number of things, jumping on the opportunity to order new layoffs, even as they ordered military members and immigration agents to be paid in ways that many experts said were unclear and possibly illegal. Right? And then adding to that, as most federal workers missed paychecks, you had food banks beginning reporting increased demand. Right? And that is, you had millions of Americans affected by the halting of payments under SNAP, where the program lapsed on November 1st, with partial benefits soon being delivered under a judge's order, even as the Trump administration did everything they could to avoid paying out full benefits. And actually, on top of that, Team Trump cut funding for infrastructure projects in Democrat-leaning states, which made good on Trump's threat to use the shutdown to target his political opponents. And all the while, you had the president keeping himself busy, right? Visiting 6 countries, speaking at a $1 million per plate dinner, starting a massive White House construction project, golfing more than a half dozen times. And then, of course, there was the whole Great Gatsby party. We literally had a whole Great Gatsby theme party at Mar-a-Lago the night before SNAP benefits ended. You know, with all that, now the government is shut down, but again, it's gonna take some time to recover, right? Flight disruptions, for example, they're expected to continue for at least a few days. You had Duffy announcing his department would continue restricting 6% of flights for now, saying we're going to wait to see the data on our end before we take out the restrictions on travel that we have right now. And with that, I mean, even back to normal is not gonna mean that we're out of the woods, since air traffic controller staffing, training, and pay were all issues even before the shutdown. And then as far as the food stamps, those are funded under the new deal, and a USDA spokesperson claimed that most states will get their share within 24 hours. But it's not clear whether that applies to when the money is available to states or actually loaded onto debit cards used by beneficiaries. And all of that is largely of advocates saying that there's been lasting damage made to the program. Also, the shutdown deal, it reverses the layoffs that happened since the shutdown and promises back pay for furloughed federal workers. But it might take some time before they actually get that money. Right, in the past, it's taken about a week for unpaid workers to receive back pay, and the Office of Personnel Management says that it varies by agency. But then we also need to talk about what else is in this deal, and maybe most notably, it's that it only funds the government through January, right, with full year funding actually only being secured for legislative branch operations, as well as programs at the Department of Veteran Affairs, the Department of Agriculture, and the Food and Drug Administration. You know, those parts of the government, they're generally among the easiest for both parties to agree on, and they only represent about 10% of the roughly $1.8 trillion that Congress gives out to federal agencies each year. And so that means that if lawmakers don't agree on everything else, there could be another partial shutdown in just a few months. And already, some Democrats are reportedly suggesting that they'd be willing to make that happen if there's no extension for the enhanced subsidies for health insurance under the Affordable Care Act. Because without those subsidies, millions of Americans are going to be left paying for more health insurance, and in some cases, hundreds of dollars more per month. And that's not including the 2 million Americans that'll lose insurance altogether next year, according to the Congressional Budget Office. And so this deal that ended the shutdown at least promises a vote in the Senate for extending ACA subsidies in December. But again, there is no guarantee whatsoever that it'll actually pass, let alone make it then through the House. So over at the House, you had Hakeem Jeffries vowing to keep pushing for the extension, saying the fight is not over, we're just getting started. Saying either Republicans finally decide to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits this year, or the American people will throw Republicans out of their jobs next year and end the speakership of Donald J. Trump once and for all. That's how this fight ends. Well, you know, we're all gonna see how this actually plays out over the coming months. There's also a few other things in the funding bill that have turned some heads. So for example, it restricts many hemp-derived THC products, which is actually a provision that briefly held up the deal. It also puts just over $200 million towards increasing security for members of Congress, which, you know, isn't the most surprising thing given the recent surge in threats against lawmakers, as well as other concerns about political violence. And then finally, one of the most contentious measures, it might actually not be sticking around for long, because it allows senators specifically to sue the government for $500,000 if their phone data or other electronic records are obtained without their knowledge. And you know, that it appears to be a response to recent revelations that 8 Republican senators had their phone records subpoenaed as part of special counsel Jack Smith's investigation into Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election, especially since the provision is retroactive to 2022, meaning that they'd be eligible to sue. So in the House, you even had other Republicans pushing back with, for example, Congressman Chip Roy saying, there's going to be a lot of people, if they look and understand this, are going to see it as self-serving, self-dealing kind of stuff. And you even had Speaker Mike Johnson saying this was way out of line and announcing that House Republicans would be introducing standalone legislation to repeal the provision, and saying we are putting this legislation on the fast-track suspension calendar in the House for next week. So really, for the weeks and the months ahead, there's a lot we're going to have our eyes on and talk about more in the near future. But then from that, the final thing today is I had a long conversation with Scott Galloway. Right? He's an academic, an author, an entrepreneur, and a podcaster. I mean, he's got so many podcasts. And he just came out with a book called Notes on Being a Man. It's very much about, you know, young men growing up, what it means to be masculine, especially at a time when many on the far right have pushed this idea of masculinity that's largely pushing cruelty, grievance, and victimhood. Well, I highly recommend you check out the whole thing. Links in the description so you can get it on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. I wanted to include this section on the haves versus the have-nots, or more specifically, either growing up rich or growing up not really having anything. I'm thankful for not having money growing up, and having those like, oh, well, we can't do that, or almost freezing to death because we're waiting for a bus that never showed up. Like, I'm thankful for that because I will never not have that spark. I will never not have that drive because you know what it's not 100%. To have. And I also, I mean, my hope is also that it sparks empathy, because I feel like we see so many people that then pull up the ladder behind them and they think that it's, it's personal exceptionalism, and I get kind of furious. I hate that because it's the me and not the we, and it fucks with my head of like, can we move forward?
I have a bias against rich kids. I find out someone has rich parents and I just don't give them the benefit of the doubt. And a lot of it is, one, I'm probably a little bit jealous, but I think you can have sympathy for people without money, but you don't really know what it's like unless you grow up without money. And also, people have a tendency, and one of the things I'm in San Francisco I hate about quote unquote tech brothers is they credit all of their success. They credit their grit and their character for all their success and don't recognize how fortunate they were to be in America. They're not launching rockets into space from South Africa. They're not building photo sharing apps in Vancouver or Seoul. There's something unique about our country that is not their fault, that they benefited massively from. You know, they're almost always male. They're almost always white males. They're almost always people who came from upper middle class or wealthy homes, unless they're immigrants. And the ones born with money, they just have no idea. I mean, just some stats. The average high school spends $15,000 per student. The average high school in a poor neighborhood spends $8,000 to $10,000. The average elite private school, the top 100, spend $75,000 a year. So think of it as investing in the kid. You know, a kid from a top income earning household that goes to a private school is literally getting $750,000 invested in them in training, education, special needs, exposure to interesting things. By the time they apply to high school, and the result is the difference between lower and middle income households on the SAT is 120 points. Where income inequality really kicks in is between the middle class and wealthy households now. And the difference in the SAT scores between middle class and upper income homes is 250 points. So if we were really going to be honest, if a kid grows up in a lower income home, we'd spot him 370 points on the SAT. I mean, you just have no idea how every day you're getting advantage or you're not getting advantage. And I remember when I applied to UCLA, it had a 74% admissions rate and I didn't get in. And I was only applied to one school because I needed to live at home. I didn't have money. And I didn't get in. I was one of the 26% that didn't get in. I remember I lived in a neighborhood where there was some wealth. And I remember friends' parents saying to me, Michigan's a great school. Why wouldn't you get on a plane and just go to Michigan and show up at the admissions office and say you're here and you're good and you're a smart kid, you're funny, da-da-da. And I'm like, Michigan? I don't own a credit card. I've been on a plane twice in my life. I don't know how that works. You don't have the confidence and the gumption.
And that, my friend, is actually where this video is going to end, but you've got more just a click away. But I definitely recommend you check out that brand new podcast with myself and Scott Galloway right here. It's just over an hour. It covers a lot. I think you're going to find it very interesting. And I really love just talking to a new person every week and then releasing it on the In Good Faith podcast. Or you can catch the new podcast I did with Alex Perlman on Crashing Out. It's kind of where I vent / also I feel like get radicalized every week. And links, of course, to everything in the description. But no matter what you do, let me just say thank you for watching. I love your faces. And actually, I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Surprise, I'm giving you a special Friday show this week. See you there.